I just messed it up. Guys, I just had the biggest boomer moment of my life, and I'm so sorry. God bless those of you that are waiting and are here. Uh, and I'm going to have to actually go back and delete some, but I have been 4 minutes late. And thank God to Jacob for texting me because I was wondering why the viewership was down hardcore. But I'm 4 minutes late right now. And that is because so I have two accounts on YouTube, and I just went live on my own account. And so, if you want to see something funny when this is over, I'm probably going to go erase it. But as soon as it's over, I'll give you some time to go look at me, just literally look at my watch and be like, and realize that I just had the biggest boomer moment ever. So praise God, it's awesome. But what is awesome and what is legitimately awesome is if you notice, I'm not at my house right now. No. I'm in fact in the youth room, guys. We're coming back to church because it's finally happening. We are finally starting this Sunday having services again. Now it's not going to be like regular services. It's not going to be, everybody gathered all at once like service as usual. It's going to be different because we got to, do this in steps and do this safely and as safely as possible. I want to make sure we do that. And so in doing that, like we've taken out every other row has been removed. If you haven't seen all this stuff on Facebook, I just want to catch you up. Every single other row is removed. We got hand sanitizers everywhere. Everybody is encouraged to be wearing these masks. No, I mean, not these masks specifically, but like a mask. So we can still remain safe, but still have church together. And so during this time, as soon as we open up, we're not going to have youth services just yet. And that's going to be kind of in our next couple steps. But even though we can't have that, and we're not doing that yet, I want to say yet because I can't wait to do that. But even though we're not doing that, I miss you so much. I need y'all to come on Sundays. All right. Like I tell y'all every single week, and I mean it every single week. I miss you guys and can't wait till we're back to services. But it's the truth. And because of that, I need y'all to come back on Sundays. And because I need to see y'all. I can't give you a hug. I can't give you a high five. I'll probably just look at you and be like, just an awkward, like, hey, like that. Hey, that's about what we can do. But I still want to see you. I still want to joke around. I just miss you guys. And so please start coming on Sundays. We've got a 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock service. Right now for this Sunday, our 9 o'clock is maxed out because we're only allowing a certain amount of people at a time. And so those people have already signed up for that. And so that's already maxed out. And so if you're coming with your family on that, can't wait to see you then. But if you haven't done anything or this is the first you're hearing about it, please come on Sunday, probably second service. That's when we're going to have more room. So come on Sunday. I can't wait to see you. That's this Sunday. All right. But I do want to go ahead and get started in this. Before I do that, I do want to address that. I do have a member with us. I know y'all missed him. It's Plank. Plank, my man Plank is over here. I love him. I miss him. So I figured he could join us for the service tonight. But so y'all say what up to Plank. He's reading the comments. He's checking who's saying hi and who's not. He'll remember that. But I'll go ahead and get started on this week's message. And so last week we started a new series entitled Fear of Missing Out. If you see that. FOMO. It's entitled FOMO, which means fear of missing out. And so we talked about how the Israelites, just after leaving Egypt, we told this whole story of how Moses went up to talk to God. He was gone for 40 days. And in that 40 days, these people were like, well, Moses is never coming back, which means God's never coming back. So we might as well build our own golden calf and start worshiping that. And so when Moses came back down, he was ticked. Moses was ticked. And so he obviously, because he was so mad because idolatry is such a huge concern to God. It's a huge concern to God. Sorry, let me get on this. And so it placing anything before God. We talked about how placing anything before God and even placing your worries before God and only focusing on that and not trusting God with whatever it is, your future. Ooh, AC just kicked on. Whatever it is, your future, or if you're going through something, trusting God in that is key. And so we ended with this encouragement whenever we're in the moment of waiting on God. And so the encouragement was some of the greatest figures in the Bible, Abraham, Joseph, Joseph, Moses, David had to wait for many years for God's purposes. But everything that happened in the meantime was used to prepare them inwardly as well as outwardly. Then when they reached their promise, they were blessed beyond measure. And so I hope you saw that and you were encouraged by that if you're waiting on God. So this week we're going to continue in that series entitled FOMO, Fear of Missing Out. And before I dive deep into this week, I do want to point out that also, if you notice, I'm sitting on a couch. We just got this couch today, and so this is going to stay in here, and it's super comfy. And I can't wait to just, it's so comfy. I love it. Like it's hard for me not to just like chill out. Anyway, all right. So we're going to start this week, and we're going to pick back up with the Israelites, except a little further down the road. And we're going to talk about how the Israelites got their first king. So we all know, we all know the Israelites had many kings. Like we all hear King David, King Solomon. Like we hear about all those kings. And so if they had any kings, all they worshipped, their only leader was God. And that's how God intended it to be. And it eventually went back to that. Like Israel doesn't have a king right now. And so they eventually went back to being governed by God. But at this point, this is how they actually got their first king, because they weren't really happy with what God was doing. And so they took it into their own hands. And so I feel like we can really relate to what the Israelites are doing. And so it picks up in 1 Samuel chapter 8, says, so Samuel is the kind of prophet over over like the people. And so God speaks to him and he lets everybody know what to do. So he's kind of like their leader, but he's not like, he's just kind of a voice for God. And so he is starting to grow old. And so it picks up in verse 1 in chapter 8. It says, as Samuel grew old, he appointed his sons to be the judges over Israel. Joel and Abijah, his oldest sons, held court in Beersheba. But they were not like his father, for they were greedy for money. They accepted bribes and perverted justice. And so Samuel has been doing great for the people of Israel. And so as he's getting older, he's starting to kind of appoint his sons to kind of take over, like every father, if they got a business or something like that, they're like, I hope I can have somebody like one of my children take over this. And so he's like, my sons would be great to take over this. And like, they would be great for God to use them. But they were a little greedy. And so they accepted bribes. And so people could get different things done in in all of Israel, because they had the power to be able to be like, no, God said. And so they were kind of perverting that justice. And so elders of Israel got tired of it. So finally, all the elders of Israel met at Ramah to discuss the matter with Samuel. Because Samuel's still alive, but he's like kind of giving them more power. So they met to discuss it with Samuel. Like Samuel, they said, look, you are now old and your sons are not like you. Give us a king to judge us like, this is the most important part, give us a king to judge us like all the other nations have. And so these Israelites were looking for stability and strength. And, they were looking, they saw what the future was holding and saw what the future held. And they knew that Samuel's sons were not as good as him. And so they, looking at that, and they're like, look, this whole no king thing, it's not really working out for us. All these other nations, they're all that we have to go in battle against, they all have a king that can unite the nation. And right now we're divided. And so because of that, we need a king that can bring us all together. That's what they were thinking. But since they couldn't find that strength and stability in their new leaders, they wanted a king just like all the other nations. They were God's chosen people, and yet they wanted to be like everybody else. And Samuel tries to steer them away from this, because he knows that's not God's plan. But these people are extremely hard-headed. And so, and just like everybody, when someone gets something in their head, you can't, when they're finally they make their point, you can't change their minds. And so that's what happens here, because these people wanted something that they couldn't have. How many of y'all are guilty of that we sometimes want what we can't have? That happens all the time. We're just literally just like cows. And I'm not calling you a cow, I promise I'm not, but I'm saying in this aspect, we are like cows, that if you look at a field of pasture, we live in Texas, I know you see a lot of cows around just in random sides of the roads. And so whenever you look at that, I want you to pay attention to the fence line, because if you'll notice on the fence line, there's always a like path that's dug in because that's what they walk on the most. Because cows are so obsessed with what's on the other side of the fence. You always hear the grass is greener on the other side. You get that saying from the cows. Like when you're looking at cows, like they will literally stick their heads through barbed wire fence to eat the grass on the other side, even though their grass is just as green, as like just as healthy. They want the grass on the other side because they're not supposed to have that. And there's always something nicer about something that you can't have. It's always it's something in us that just like you ever like get to those moments where like if your parents are like, hey, don't do this, you're like, well, I didn't want to before, but now I kind of want to do that. Now I kind of want to I want to do that now. That's exactly what these people are going through. These Israelites people are going through. They're looking at this and they're seeing that these other nations that have kings, they look like they're thriving, and we're over here. We don't know what our future holds right now. And so if you just give us a king, then we'll be okay. But what this is saying that God as their leader wasn't enough, wasn't satisfying them. And so they were trying to be like all the other nations, even though they had God as their leader. They wanted a king, a human, as their leader, because the grass is always greener on the other side. You hear that saying all the time. Grass is always greener on the other side. What you don't know is it's greener because it's full of manure. It's full of crap. And so Samuel explains this to him. Like, look, all right, you say you want a king because he's supposed to unite everybody. But let me tell you what a king really does. And so it picks up in verse 11. Says, all right, look, you want this, but let me warn you. So the king will draft your sons and assign them to his chariots and charioteers, making them run before his chariots. Some will be generals and captains in the army. Some will be forced to plow the fields and harvest the crops. Some will make weapons and chariot equipment. The king will take your daughters from you and force them to cook and bake and make perfumes for him. He will take away the best of your field and vineyards and olive groves and give them to his own officials. He will take a tenth of your grain and grape, harvest He will take a tenth of your grain and your grape harvest and distribute it among his officers and attendants. He will take your male and female slaves and demand the finest of your cattle and donkeys for his own use. He will demand a tenth of your flocks, and you will be his slaves. And so Samuel lists all like, look, you gotta be aware of what you're getting yourself into. He lists all the disadvantages of having a king to kind of warn them. And if you notice, each sentence begins with something the king is going to take, because the king would take all that stuff. A king would be a confiscator, not a protector. I'm going to say that again. If they wanted a king, he's letting them know that a king would be a confiscator, not a protector. God is their protector, and he's doing this for the best of them, but a king would start to do this selfishly, and he's letting them know that. But like I said earlier, when a person's mind is set, it's hard to dissuade them. Like, you know those stubborn people, like there's some people that you know, and if you like looking at your life, like looking right now and you're like, man, who's the stubborn people I know? If you can think of somebody, like don't call them out or anything like that. But also if you can't think of anybody, it's probably you. But Samuel explains all this to them, but because they're stubborn, because they have their mind set on what God should be doing, they have this mindset of like, look, God's obviously got this wrong. Here's what needs to happen. And so we're going to you. We want you to appoint a king for us. And so not only were they saying that God isn't enough as our leader right now, we want a human as our leader, they were going to God to appoint a leader for them. And so like that doesn't make any sense. And you would think that God would look and be like, no, like, of course we're not going to do that. Like, why would you put me in this box to operate? Like these Israelites, these elders are trying to put God in this box to operate. They wanted God to move and like God appoint this king. Like you have free reign in doing that, but they gave him free reign in a box. And so it didn't make sense. And how many times have we tried to do that as well? That you try to put, you want God to work in your life, and you want God to, operate and, lead you, but you want him to do it on your terms. Like how many times have we done that, God, like, make sure you do this, like, please do this for me. And, it'll be great. God, I want you to have your way in my life as a football star. And so God, I want to be the best at football. So work through me in that. But what if God doesn't want you to be with football? When I was growing up, I swore up and down that I was going to be in the NFL someday. Yes, I know. I'm a tiny white boy. I was always the shortest on the team. Like whenever the most embarrassing, guys, I'm getting real deep in my childhood right now, and I'm being real. One of the most embarrassing days of the year for me was football picture day, because every single time I was always at the end of the line. And so I'm this kid that's like, all right, God, I want you to use me in the NFL, like little like 12-year-old Cody, like, God, I want you to use me in the NFL, like shorter than everybody. And so I wanted God to work with me in that, but God had a completely different other plan. And so how many times have we told God that, like, God, I want you to work with me in this area, and maybe God doesn't want you in that area. And so then we get upset at God because he's not working in this area, because it's not part of his plan. And so we're like, God, why aren't you doing anything? Like, you're just leaving me blank. Like, you're not answering me at all. Like, why aren't you answering? Like, because God's not measuring up to your own standards, even though God never intended that for you. God never intended Israel to have a king to rule over them. God wanted to be their ruler. He's trying to like help them through this. A king would only want to take as God would only wants to give. And so we get mad at God because he doesn't measure up to our standards, and we demand something else for him. Or he responds just like he did to the Israelites. Because he ends up telling them, like, Samuel's like, all right, I'll go to God about this. And so Samuel goes to God, and he's like, God, look, they want a king. Now, how do you want me to tell them no? And God's like, no. Okay, give him a king, because this is what's going to happen. And, the warning that Samuel gives them is from God. Like, God tells them, like, okay, give them that, but let them know what's going to happen. And so God looks at it and he's like, okay, that's what you want. We'll do that. And I don't know if that's ever happened to you, but it's happened to me. And it's honestly one of the scariest moments of my life is when I was in Bible school. I'll never forget it. It's when I was in Bible school. All the people around me were talking about having lucid dreams. And if you don't know what lucid dreams are, it's where you are dreaming when you're sleeping, you're dreaming, and you're like, oh, wow, this is a dream. I can do whatever I want. And you start flying, and you start you're the greatest ninja of all time. Just these random things that are super cool. And so I'm with all the guys in my Bible school, and they're all talking about the craziest things they've done while lucid dreaming. This one dude is like, yeah, I lucid dream every night. It's pretty cool. And I'm like, man, I don't even have dreams at all. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, whenever I wake up, I'm not like, oh, my dream was about this. I remember still to this day, I remember thinking when I wake up, I just remember black when I was sleeping. I just remember darkness, and then I woke up. That was it. And so I remember being like, man, I wish I could lucid dream. That'd be so cool to know what it feels like to fly. How many people want to fly? Everybody, when you're growing up, what superpower do you want? I want to fly. Everybody wants that. And so I was like, that'd be super cool. So I remember that night I was laying down and I was praying, and I was like, God, I want dreams. I think that'd be super cool. And I remember God responding just, okay. And I was just like, okay, all right. So I'm going to get him. And he was like, okay. And so that night I had the worst night terror, not nightmare. I've had nightmares where I wake up. This is the only time I vividly remember having a night terror. And I woke up, I remember it was just the scariest dream I've ever had in my life that night. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I remember waking up and being like heavy breath, that sweating, and I was just freaking out, oh my gosh, what the heck? I didn't know that was happening. I didn't know that. I didn't ask for that kind of dream. And I remember I wasn't praying, I wasn't talking to God or anything like that, but God spoke to me at that moment. He was like, you have no idea what I'm keeping you from. And I was just like, okay, no dreams. I get it, understand, no dreams. And so I say that today, and I want to end on that story, just that, man, when you're praying for something, if you feel like God, if you're waiting on something, you feel like you have a fear of missing out on what you think your destiny is, what you think your future is supposed to be, and you're like, God, work with me, work in me in this area. Maybe God doesn't want you in that area. You have no idea what God's keeping you from. If you're waiting for something and you're not getting the answer that you think that you should be getting, you have no idea what God could be keeping you from. God, just like me, whenever I wanted the dreams, I was like, God, I want a lucid dream. To this day, I very rarely remember my dreams. I could probably count on my one hand how many times I've had a dream that I woke up and remembered the next day, to this day. And that was 5-6 years ago that I was in Bible school and like this all happened. But I had no idea that God like was keeping all those night terrors from me. And so when I woke up, he was like, you have no idea what I'm keeping from you. And so today I just want to encourage you with, you have no idea what God is keeping you from for your benefit. Not like God's holding something back for you. Like, you can't get this. Like, you have no idea what evil things God's keeping you from in his plan for you. Like, you have no idea. God may not be keeping you from, excelling in this because that's not the area he wants you to go forward in. That's not the plan he has for you, because the plan he has for you, I promise, is perfect for you. Like, my life is just the biggest, testimony to that. God's plans are bigger than your dreams. Like, I'm working at the church. I'm the youth pastor at the church that I grew up in. Like, whenever I felt called to ministry, I was never like, man, I think it'd be super cool to work at Dominion. Like, I think that'd be so cool. Like, I never thought that, because that was beyond my wildest dreams. Like, I was just like, I can't wait to go somewhere, like wherever God wants me, and like I'll work there. But like, me and Spencer, one of our youth leaders, if you don't know that, me and Spencer would always talk about like, this is the dream. Like, coming back to work for Dominion is the dream. But I never like actually meant it. And then that was his final plan. Like, God's plan was legitimately bigger than what I ever could imagine. And if I would have like tried to if I would have like went any other path, like, God wants the best plan for you and wants the perfect fit for you. You just got to trust him in it. And so if you feel like you're a failure in one area and you're just not excelling this and you don't know why, and you're asking God, like, why am I not doing good here? Maybe God's holding you back from something so you don't pursue down that and go a path that you won't be happy in, a path that that's going to lead you down the wrong path, like a path that's going to like take you away from what you're ultimately supposed to be doing. And so I just want to encourage you in that you have no idea what God's keeping from you. Just got to trust him. So that's it. Some last minute announcements before I hop off. Don't forget, we are officially starting services this Sunday, guys. I miss y'all. Show up. Like, I can't wait. We don't have our own. We can't sit in a youth section, because whoever you come with, we want you to sit with, and like sit in families, and we're sitting some seats apart. Like, but whoever you ride with, sit with them. Sit with your mom and dad. Look, I know you haven't been like around your parents enough during quarantine. So if you come with your parents, sit with your parents. They miss you. All right. They're not sick of you either. So it's going to be great. But I really want to see y'all here. And I really want to just be able to connect with y'all. Also, don't forget, every Monday night, we got our small group Zoom meetings. And so make sure you're there still connecting. Also, finally, seniors, reach out to me. All right. We're finalizing the plans of what we're the way we're going to celebrate you, the way we want to honor you, and the way we want to congratulate you for this momentous occasion. We all want to honor that, and we want to celebrate that. And so please, please, please make sure you reach out to me and be like, hey, Cody, you said to like you may like, I'm sure there are people here that are like, man, I don't know how to reach out to him. Just be like, hey, not really sure, but you told me to reach out to you if I was a senior. So if you're a senior, do that. Like, just reach out, message us on Instagram, comment on the video. I don't care if you got my number. Text me, like, just let me know, hey, I want to be a part of this, whatever it is. All right, guys, I love y'all so much. Thanks for stopping by. Welcome. We are this much closer. I'm now no longer doing live streams from my home. I'm finally here at the church, and so we're this much closer to being here, guys. I can't wait to see y'all. Y'all have a great week.